California area. And so gold, typically the mining in California occurs two ways. One is a hard rock gold, where the gold is mixed in with the quartz minerals that you can see, the quartz veins and the hills around Menifee. And the other one is the gold has been eroded out of those quartz veins and now is in gold flakes and nuggets and is in the stream beds. So when you see the old miners that they're panning for gold, and we've got some of that here, is that the panning process is they would dip up some of the sand and gravel out of the riverbed, and they would wash it around with the water and throw out the big stuff. And as they would go down, the material would get finer and finer until finally they would just wind up with the heaviest material, which would be little gold flakes. So that was one way to mine gold. But here in the Menifee area, the gold kind of occurred. You can see those quartz, the white quartz back there. The gold actually occurred in that quartz. So to get that out, you had to tunnel into the mountains, tunnel following along one of those quartz veins. We were blasting it out. Typically they were using a hand drill, like this drill here, and a sledgehammer, and they would drill holes into the rock, and then pack that with dynamite and blow it, and then they would get big chunks of rock out. And then the big chunks of rock would have to be crushed, and they would be crushed into this size and smaller. And then typically, this is some mining equipment over here that was not used, but typically what they used was a stamp mill, of which this size material was placed on a steel pad here, and a steam engine would run this belt, lifting these arms and levers up and dropping about an 800-pound block to crush that into real fine material. And then this would be washed with water across a copper plate, which was covered with mercury. And the mercury would, the gold will absorb onto the mercury. And so then after a while they would stop, they would take and scrape this mercury off into a cloth. It's like a cheesecloth. And they would squeeze the water out of it. And then they would put that in, which we don't have a picture of it here, but I have one in there, called a retort. So they would put this mercury with the gold in it, and they would heat it up. The mercury would vaporize, and through like an old whiskey still, and come back and condense underwater so they could save the mercury and reuse it. And then what was left over was just a little button of molten metal, which would be mostly gold with some silver and some other impurities in it. So that was typically the process that was used here.
A lot of work.
A lot of work. So these mines, this is actually a map of Riverside County, which shows you the various mines that were in Riverside County. There's a legend up at the top, which corresponds to the numbers on the map, can tell you what kind of mine it was. So in addition to gold mines, we had some tin mines, some coal mines, and then there were a few precious metal mines, and then there were just sand and gravel mines, which was used, in construction, same as it is today. So this is the first mine in this general area was this one, which Luther Menifee Wilson discovered, and in the late 1880s, and this is located just actually down the street from here at the intersection of Murrieta and Holland. Is where that mine is at. So Luther is what happened is whenever you discover a gold, you stake a claim. Initial thing you do is you stake a claim. So how you actually stake a claim is you go from where you're standing, from where this vein is at. You can go 750 feet in either direction and 300 feet in either direction. You put stakes or piles of rocks at those corners, and then you you handwrite out your claim, and you take that down and file it with the local mining district. Well, if you don't have a mining district, you take it to the county. Well, when Luther discovered this, we were in San Diego County. So he went down to San Diego County and he filed his claim. The other thing you do with your claim is you actually have a piece of it written down, and this is a typical old claim, and we actually have some in there. And you take that copy of that claim and you stick it in that middle, very middle of your claim. So what that's for, if someone comes up while you're gone, maybe even down to just to register your claim, you've already got a record of your claim being here. So when Luther did this, this was the first mine in this area, and so we formed a new mining district called the Menifee Mining District at that time. And so all of these mines in this area would have been in what was called the Menifee Mining District, over as far as Winchester and in that area. So after you get, but now just because you have a claim, this is all, by the way, is government land. I mean, it's, so just because you have a claim doesn't mean you own it. You're allowed to take all the gold out you want. You don't have to pay any taxes on it. You don't have to pay anything. You have to pay an annual claim fee to keep your claim. So what happens, you file this claim and then you start trying to mine it, and you decide that it's just not worth it, not enough gold here. So you leave. That just reverts back to where the government's at. And you decided that it wasn't any good, you walk away and leave it. But if you decide that this is going to be a very profitable venture, then you can actually file and get the actual land itself. So that's called a land patent. So once you get the patent, then you own the land, and so you can sell your claim, but again, if it's not patented, no one will own it. But for instance, like Menifee's claim, once he got it patented, he sold that to a mining company, and then later on it was sold after the mine was closed. It was just sold for people to turn into other real estate type things. So the mining here was really never very profitable. The people who made the money off the mines was the guy who first discovered the vein and turned around and sold it to somebody. So these started in the early 1880s. By the early 1900s, most of the mining was over with. People began to, there'll be a few startups here or there. People would find something, but for the most part, it was pretty much over with. And by the early 1900s, then you begin to see this turn more to farming. And even before then, the farming started. But by 1900, it was pretty much over with. The only other really big mine that was in the area was the Good Hope mine, which actually we have a little exhibit for it here. And the Good Hope mine was located between Paris and Lake Elsinore. Right. And they had shafts that went down over 400 feet in the Good Hope mine. The deepest that any of these shafts here went was probably 200 feet, and not much deeper. And the tunnels that went off from it were only well less than 1,000 feet long, whereas Good Hopes were much bigger. And the Good Hope was actually had quite a bit of gold come out of it, but most of Menifee's didn't. What would happen with the gold here is they would find it. They would see something that glittered. They would follow it along, and then occasionally they would find a larger nugget or a larger deposit, and then it was gone. But if you listen to the newspaper articles or read the newspaper articles at that time, the newspapers would really blow up that find, saying Luther's going to be a millionaire, or the Walker brothers are going to be millionaires, or the Walker brothers, who was down here working on this, is that the gold that they found literally glittered, So the newspapers really played it up. But for the most part, the mining was not a profitable venture here.
You mentioned the They could have had the patent and they owned the land just where the mine claim was, not the regular land.
Right, they owned basically what they had claimed, which would be 1,500 feet in one direction and 600 feet, 300 from the middle line on each side. So I think that's about 20 acres.
Did they have to pay anything?
No. Well, there was some money involved. For instance, when you did this claim, you didn't call in a surveyor. The way that it was, you just had these four corners staked and the middle staked, and then the notes might say 1.5 miles from Jim's red barn. Okay, that was the only description of it. But if you got a patent, you had to retain and hire a surveyor. Surveyor had to come and survey the actual location of the land. So you could get a patent, just like your homestead. You know, it had to be surveyed in order to own the land.
Do you have the claim that for the Menifee one?
I never actually found the claim for the Menifee mine. It would have been filed in San Diego County, and that record book is missing from San Diego's History Center. The patent, I don't remember whether I actually found the patent for that or not. We know it was patent because it was sold and it was reported in the newspapers when it was sold, and we know that it was a patent, but I did not find an actual copy of the patent.